Hi everyone. Imagine stepping onto a small plane with just 50 seats. You're settling in when a hooded man walks down the aisle, sunglasses on, cap pulled low. At first, nothing unusual, until something inside you whispers, "That face looks familiar." Now here's the twist. That man was Tupac Shakur. And what happened next? When a flight attendant noticed him and acted in a way no one expected, left the entire cabin stunned. Would you have recognized him in disguise? It was March 1995. Publicly, Tupac was said to be recovering in New York after a near-fatal shooting just 3 months earlier. The media painted the picture of an artist caught between life and death. But privately, away from cameras and noise, he was walking through a terminal in New Mexico. His body was still weak, moving with a limp, stitches fresh from the bullets that had nearly ended his life. He carried only a duffel bag, a notepad stuffed with lyrics, and a folded photograph of his mother, Afeni Shakur. At the check-in counter, he handed over a passport. The name printed was Malik S. The agent looked at him twice, sensing something familiar in his voice and presence, but asked no questions. The name was an alias Tupac had used before, one from his early demo days. It worked again. He didn't ask for first class, didn't want an entourage, and didn't request special treatment. All he wanted was row 17, seat A, a seat by the window, where no one would think twice about him. The aircraft was a small regional jet, one of those planes built for no more than 50 passengers. For most people, it was just another forgettable ride. But for him, it was perfect. The smaller the crowd, the easier it was to disappear. As he made his way down the narrow aisle, keeping his hood low and his steps steady, a young boy tugged on his mother's sleeve. "Mom, that guy looks like Tupac," the boy whispered. His mother laughed softly. "Sweetie, Tupac wouldn't be flying coach in sneakers." The man didn't flinch. He just kept walking, head down, ticket arranged quietly by a trusted tour manager named Don. The flight was already delayed. A minor mechanical issue had restless passengers sighing, babies fussing, and teenagers scrolling through playlists. Then, the gate opened again. A woman hurried in, clutching a photograph between two prayer cards. She wore no uniform, just a coat with a crooked name tag, Mariah Dean. A flight attendant with Desert Sky Airlines, she wasn't on duty this trip. Her mother was in St. Mary's Hospital, Los Angeles, and she needed to get there fast. The only available seat was in the back, right next to him. She smiled politely as she sat. "Thanks for letting me squeeze in." He only shrugged, but the rasp of his voice, the sharpness of his cheekbones, it tugged at her memory. Finally, she asked quietly, "Have we met before?" He smirked faintly. "If we had, I'd remember." Her mind flashed back to her younger brother, Quincy. He had idolized Tupac, filling his room with posters, blasting his music until the walls shook. In 1993, Quincy had died in a car crash on his way to prom. For weeks afterward, Tupac's songs were the only thing that gave her comfort. She used to play them endlessly, clinging to their truth. And now, sitting inches away, she heard that same voice again. Another jolt of turbulence rocked the plane. Passengers gasped, and Mariah instinctively clutched his arm tighter. He didn't flinch. "It's just air pockets," he murmured calmly. Then he added, "Planes are like life. You don't control the drop, only how you land." The depth in his words confirmed what she feared. She leaned closer, voice trembling. "Are you Tupac?" The cabin hummed with the engines. He leaned back slowly, finally removing his sunglasses. Their eyes met. "Would it change anything if I was?" he asked. Her voice broke. "Yes, because I thought you were dead." He exhaled deeply. "Ain't everything you see true? And not everything you miss is gone." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small photograph. It was of Afeni Shakur. He handed it to her without a word. Her breath caught. The truth was undeniable. "You're really him." "I'm just trying to make it to tomorrow," he replied. Mariah shared her story of Quincy, her voice shaking as she described how his music had kept her alive after her brother's death. Tupac listened, eyes lowered, then finally said, "I lost people too. Friends, trust, pieces of myself." "Then why hide?" she asked. "Because the moment I walk outside," he said, "I stop being a person. I become a headline, a rumor, a myth, she understood. Some people vanish in silence. Others vanish in noise. He tore a page from his notepad and handed it to her. She unfolded it carefully. In jagged handwriting, it read, "If I vanish in the wind, let my words be the reason someone breathes one more day." She gasped. "That's not just a lyric." "No," he said softly. "That's a promise." The plane steadied again, but the quiet didn't last. A teenage girl from the front stood up and walked down the aisle, staring at Tupac. "You look just like Tupac," she whispered. Mariah stood quickly, blocking her view. "He's not who you think," she said firmly. "Go back to your seat." The girl hesitated, then nodded and returned. Tupac turned to Mariah, stunned. "You didn't have to do that." "You saved my life once through your words," she said gently. "I'm just returning the favor." But another threat appeared. A man in a business suit across the aisle had been staring for too long. Finally, he pulled out his phone, lifting it discreetly to take a photo. Mariah noticed instantly. She stood abruptly, flashing her ID. "Sir, that's not allowed during descent." "Delete the photo, now!" The man hesitated, but the eyes of the cabin were on him. Embarrassed, he complied. Murmurs rippled through the passengers. Mariah sat down again, her pulse racing. Tupac stared at her in disbelief. "You really didn't have to risk that," he whispered. "You don't deserve to be bothered," she replied. Moments later, the plane descended into Los Angeles. The tires screeched softly against the runway. Passengers applauded the safe landing, unaware of the history sitting silently in row 17. As the aisle cleared, Tupac turned to Mariah. "You reminded me people still care, not for the image, but for the soul underneath." She opened her palm, revealing a folded napkin. "And you reminded me my brother didn't die in vain. He believed in something real." "I almost forgot what that was." They embraced briefly. No cameras, no flashes, just silence. Then he pulled his hood over his head, lowered it, and walked toward the front. The flight attendant at the door didn't recognize him. She smiled. "Safe travels." "Always," he replied. Beyond the jet bridge, a black sedan with tinted windows waited. At the wheel was Youssef, a longtime family friend who ran a modest recording studio in Compton. He waved Tupac into the car, and together they vanished into the traffic of Los Angeles like any other travelers. Mariah sat frozen in her seat, still clutching the page he had given her. Words she knew would stay with her forever. 2 months later, a slim book appeared quietly in local shops. Its title was Words the Wind Tried to Steal. The author's name was listed only as MS. There were no interviews, no press, no celebrity endorsements. Yet readers who opened its pages felt it immediately. The rawness, the rhythm, the truth. It was unmistakably Tupac Shakur. On the final page, one haunting line read, "If you ever sat next to a stranger and they saved your life without even trying, you owe them a forever they'll never ask for." Mariah Dean never spoke publicly about that flight. But every time her job took her over New Mexico, she would glance out the window toward the quiet hills and smile. So now the question is yours. If Tupac Shakur sat just a few rows away, hidden in plain sight, would you have recognized him? Was it simply another flight, or a rare glimpse into a legend who refused to vanish completely? One truth remains. His words never died. They still breathe for Mariah, for Quincy, for millions, and maybe even for you. If this story moved you, hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more incredible stories. Thanks for watching.